Welcome back, and thank you for joining for another one of Mike and Billy's whiskey reviews. Today, we're getting back to some scotches. I'm going to go to a well-known scotch, but just something I wanted to bring you because I noticed I never really hit this scotch in my earlier reviews. And that is the Glenlivet 15-year-old French Oak, 40% ABV. Glenlivet, Speyside Distillery, one of the most popular whiskey distilleries known to man. If you know whiskey, Scotch whiskey, you've heard of the Glenlivet. One of the best-selling 12-year-olds, I believe the best-selling is Glenfiddich, and one of the best-selling 18-year-olds. I believe the best-selling 18-year-old is Highland Park 18, but again, the Glenlivet is a staple. Whenever I think of Glenlivet, I think of the first Anchorman, when Ron Burgundy walks in and says, 3 fingers of Glenlivet. And that's just getting the party started. When I think of doing 3 fingers of Glenlivet, I think, I'm not going to work tomorrow. Anyway, the French Oak, aged 15 years. Why do they call it the French Oak? Well, it's aged in French Oak casks. Casks that are traditionally, that style of cask is used for cognac. But at least it was partially, or just the finishing was done in some of these French Oak casks. And the difference between French oak as compared to like Spanish oak or American oak is French oak is a more porous wood, so it's easier for the liquid to kind of work its way in. Traditionally, I've noticed with French oak whiskeys, they're really spicy. They're really spicy, woody. You get, your cinnamons, allspice, some of those flavors in the French oak maturated whiskeys. One whiskey that I think is in French oak, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is the Bruichladdich Black Art. I've had a couple of Black Arts at the 23-year-old, and I just got the 26-year-old. And I often get that fortified wine, that French oak sort of taste in those whiskeys. If any guys have tried that whiskey, let me know what you think. Or let me know if I'm onto something with the French oak cask. At least the finishing in French oak. So anyway, the Glenlivet 15-year-old French oak, I'm sure you've seen it on the shelves. It is roughly a $65 bottle here in the US. It's a bottle I bought a while ago. Actually, I think I got this for a Christmas present, and it is now October, and I've only drank this much of it. Not because it's not a good whiskey, it's just Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, they really didn't push the boundaries as far as a flavor profile in one direction or another, either sweet or sherried or peated. There's no peat, but they're very palatable whiskeys for a broad audience. And to that extent, they've been successful. As far as what we think of the smell, taste, let's find out. You get that kind of an oaky, fortified wine smell to it. And in the background, there's some light fruits, very similar to the Glenlivet 12-year-old. I'm getting apples, pears. So I get a similar apple smell as I get with the Glenfiddich 12-year-old as I do with this Glenlivet 15. But it's woody, it's oaky. It's almost like a grape skin characteristic to the nose. And just so you know, I took 1 dram out of this back around Christmas time. So I've had this bottle open for about 10 months, but just not much air hitting it. I don't think this is a whiskey that keeps a really long time. From my previous experience, it's already 40% ABV, which is just the minimum. So I don't like for this bottle to have a lot of air in it. If this bottle reaches 2/3 full, at that point I need to do something. Gas it, share it with a bunch of friends, something along those lines. Now, there is a little peppery note on the nose to this. I think, and that's, to me, characteristic of some of the French oak casks. And I know this particular kind of cask that it is, the French oak is typically used for cognacs, but I'm getting no cognac smell to it, just a grapey, fortified wine smell kind of off in the distance. No, let's have a sip. There's that French oak cask. Spicy, cinnamon. It's peppery. Just on the end, it's peppery. On the back finish, but really spicy. A lot of cinnamon. Maybe clove. Maybe, I hate to say allspice, but allspice. And a little bit of white pepper right there on the end. Now, I didn't add a lot of water to this because it's already at 40% ABV. Let's just give it a minute to see what it does, because again, I haven't had a lot of this whiskey yet. Here's my feeling on Glenlivet. 12 is a decent entry-level whiskey. 15-year-old has a decent complexity, and usually where the distillery kind of starts to hit its stride. Glenlivet 18 is a really good bang for your buck whiskey. One of the more affordable 18-year-old whiskeys, roughly $100 here in Columbus, Ohio. And compared to a Glenfiddich or some of the other more basic middle of the road single malt Scotch whiskeys, I really like the Glenlivet 18. I've had the 21, it's a little bit pricey for my taste. I've had the 25, again, decent, but a little pricey. With Glenlivet, it seems like the older they get, the little more silkier they get as far as the palate. It's very smooth, it's very palatable. It's a very easy drinking whiskey. So if you are new single malt Scotch whiskey, and you just happen upon my channel, and you're looking at this in a store, this is a good whiskey, a bit more spicy and rounded than some of your more basic Glenfiddichs and Glenlivets. I don't know if this is your first Glenlivet, if this is one I would try. I would try either the 12 or the 18. Glenlivet also has a number of NAS whiskeys, non-age statement whiskeys. Haven't really found one that I thought was really worth reviewing, but I will say that this 15-year-old is a bit of a sidestep from their normal core range, just because, in my opinion, of the cask they use. The French oak cask kind of did something a little different with this whiskey. I know people who prefer this to the 18. I personally do not. I personally think the 18 is the best of the core range, especially for the money. But, you know, just another guy's opinion. You guys let me know what you think. Now that I've had water in it for some amount of time, I get a few more of those orchard fruits. Again, apples, again, pears. Maybe a light peach. Just the faintest hint of citrus in the background. Some nice oakiness and woodiness too. I try to understand how long it was in the French oak cask, because I'm fairly sure it didn't spend the majority of its time there. I'm fairly sure it spent most of its time in ex-bourbon barrels, and it was transferred into these French oak casks. But I wasn't able to nail down the exact time frame, so I don't want to speak to something I don't know about. But I'll say as a finishing, 9 months maybe, a year. That'd be my guess. All right, one more sip. Same things, cinnamon, spice, cloves, pepper, just subdued with a little bit of water. As I thought, this is one to drink neat. It's already 40% ABV. It's probably lacking a couple of ABV, so you do not need to add water, in my opinion, for this whiskey. Drink it neat. Adding water just waters it down. Anyway, let's think about the Glenlivet 15. Want to bring a couple of these to you. I'm going to bring some of my more expensive whiskeys here again here pretty soon, but I just want to do a couple of bourbons. I got the Lafroy 25 coming for you guys, and I'm in the process of trying to pick up another Balvenie Ton 1509, just not edition 4. I'm trying to pick up a new edition, just kind of tell you guys what the differences are. But anyway, stay tuned for that. I want to thank you once again for joining us for another one of Mike and Billy's whiskey reviews. And until next time, I'll see you in the comments section, and I wish you happy drinking.